to pray to the Carmel in Seremban, and we start to generate sort of fellowship and accompany each other at least with prayer. And I'm happy that one of the persons also proposed to keep on meeting even virtually. I'm a bit reluctant to virtual meetings, so but I'm happy that there are people that have the spirit to keep on doing things even virtually. And Edith Stein, probably among the Carmelite saints, is the less known, and probably the one a little bit scary because she was a philosopher, so not many approach her. She was a German philosopher, which is even worse. So the way of writing is not that familiar and immediate like it could be with Saint Therese. But and actually I encounter Edith Stein. Of course, I knew her name as a philosopher, but I encounter her mostly through music, thanks to some songs that were inspired by her personality and her life. Then when I started to talk spirituality, I was very much caught by her writing and the meaning, the ability that she has to put the experience of the cross as something not only beautiful, but as something meaningful, and is something that is cosmic somehow, because it allows us to participate into the mystery of redemption together with Jesus. But I don't want to lecture. I don't want to steal space to Brother George that agreed so kindly to give this introductory talk. And I'm very happy that he agreed, and I'm sure that we are all going to benefit from his talk. And also because we are experiencing a period that has a lot of similarities with the period in which Edith Stein was living, a period in which emergencies are sometimes used as an occasion for seizing individual liberties. But let me conclude this brief introduction just with a few lines from the homily that St. John Paul II dedicated to her when he canonized Edith Stein as Saint Teresa Benedicta of the Cross on 11 October 1998, so 23 years ago. John Paul II says, "The mystery of the cross gradually enveloped her whole life, spurring her to the point of making the supreme sacrifice. As a bride on the cross, Suor Teresa Benedicta did not only write profound pages about the science of the cross, which is the title of one of her main books, but was thoroughly trained in the school of the cross. Many of our contemporaries would like to silence the cross, but nothing is more eloquent than the cross when silenced. The true message of suffering is a lesson of love. Love makes suffering fruitful, and suffering deepens love." So thank you very much for joining us. I ask you again, please, to mute yourself, and I leave the floor to Brother George.
Hello, nice to see all of you today here. Just a brief introduction of myself. I'm Brother George, currently based in Seremban. I'm not a priest, not a deacon yet. In this strict lockdown and situation like this, ordination has been postponed as far as possible, so we will wait. If it's God's time, it's God's time. One of my favorite designer and architect, Antonio Gaudi, once said that if God is not in a rush, neither he is in a rush. So I will be following his principle, especially in this matter regarding about my ordination. So let us just begin this with a short prayer to Our Lady. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Saint Teresa Benedicta of the Cross, pray for us. Okay, let me share screen with all of you. First and foremost, can all of you see it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. All right, so today we are going to deal with one saying that it's really, really foreign to us and scary to even approach with. Her name is Saint Teresa Benedicta of the Cross. And over here, let's just do a little bit of warm up. And I would like to ask all of you this question. Who is Saint Teresa Benedicta of the Cross to you? Perhaps I can hear maybe few of you from the floor. Just give me like maybe 1 or 2 sentences regarding about your opinion regarding about her so that we can kickstart the whole talk regarding about her today. Anyone want to share? No one? Okay.
Good evening, brother.
Yes,
This
good
is
evening.
Rachel. I know she's a philosopher and a Jew, as Carmelo told us. She's also an Auschwitz detainee.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So any other person who would like to share?
Yeah, the little I know, this is Francesco. Hi, guys. It's
Okay.
what I read on the biography, a brief one, which I read every day for all the saints of the day. So she was a Jew by birth, then she converted to Catholicism, and she was a victim of the Holocaust.
Okay. All right. So who is she really to all of you then?
She's a feminist.
Feminist. A different
Feminist.
point of view. Very good. Very good.
Very bold.
Very bold.
Very courageous.
Very courageous. I see Etta Ting actually wrote courageous lady. Okay. So
Intelligent. Very
and intelligent too, yes. In fact, she's super intelligent.
That's right.
Well, so that is pretty much sums up who she really is to all of us. But today I would like to dive in a little deeper, and we are going to see her through the perspective of a martyr. But first and foremost, why my slides cannot move? Okay, what does the word martyrs really means? So I'm going to share with all of you a video from the Bible Project. Perhaps some of you are very acquainted with this YouTube channel, and I saw that just now Eric Chan put a profile picture specifically from there. So I'm going to show all of you this video. So perhaps after that, I'm going to explain a little bit more of what the word martyr really means. Okay, let me first share you the video right now.
When you hear the word witness, you might think of someone who sees something shocking or important and then shares their testimony with others. The word witness is used like this in the Bible too, but here's what's really fascinating. This word actually helps us understand the entire storyline of Scripture. In the Bible, a witness is basically someone who sees something important or amazing. In Hebrew, this person is an aid, and in Greek, a martus. And if this person begins to share what they've seen, we call this bearing witness, in Hebrew, ood, and in Greek, martyreo. So in the story of Ruth, when Boaz buys land from Naomi's family, he calls together witnesses to see the transaction so that if there's a later dispute about the land, they can bear witness about what they saw. So that's the basic meaning of the word witness. Now, if we follow this idea throughout the Bible, we learn that God wants a group of witnesses, people who see and experience him to ood or represent him to the world. So beginning with the story of the Exodus, the people of Israel witness Yahweh as the powerful king of the nations when he rescues them from slavery. Then he appoints this one nation to bear witness, or ood, to the rest of the nations about what they experienced. He calls them a kingdom of priests, or people who connect all other nations to Yahweh, the true God and King. But there's a big problem. The Israelites aren't good witnesses. In fact, they start worshiping other gods. So God raises up a chief witness, Moses, to ood, or bear witness to the people who are supposed to be the real witnesses. When Moses meets with Yahweh on Mount Sinai, he sees and experiences God face to face. When he comes down, he oods, he bears witness to the people about his experience. He even writes a song as a witness so that they would never forget how God has cared for and rescued them. But as the story goes on, Israel does forget. They fail to truly see God, so they fail as his witnesses. So God raises up prophets who are like Moses to ood, to open their eyes to who their God really is. Like Isaiah, he has a vision of God as the cosmic king, and he's sent to ood to bear witness to the Israel of his day because they're blind, they're corrupt, and they don't recognize God as their king. So Isaiah says that one day God will raise up the ultimate chief witness, a figure called the servant. He will open the eyes of the blind so that they can truly see Yahweh and bear witness to the nations that their God is the king who will rescue the world. And now, when we turn to the story of Jesus, we find him claiming to be that servant and witness spoken of by Isaiah. He's the ultimate witness, or in Greek, the martus. Crowds of people witness him saying that he's bringing God's kingdom, that it's here, right now, through him. They see Jesus healing people, even restoring sight to the blind. Many recognize who he is and respond to his message, but many others still refuse to truly see. Even the nation's leaders won't listen to him. Rather, they kill Jesus for bearing witness to God's kingdom, that is, for being a martyrs. In fact, this is where the word martyr comes from. But then, after Jesus' death, something amazing happens. Jesus' friends see him alive from the dead, and they recognize that he is the divine king, Yahweh himself, who has come to rescue the world. After that, Jesus sends them out to martyreo, that is, to bear witness to the nations, to open their eyes to this risen king who has conquered death and who offers freedom and rescue and the hope of a new creation. And it's this story about Jesus that's been spread all around the world by faithful witnesses. And to this day, when someone hears the story of Jesus and experiences the love of God for all humanity, the most natural thing to do is to simply bear witness.
All right. Now coming back to the whole presentation again that we have just now, what does the word martyrs really means? Now the word martyrs comes from the word martus, which is a Greek word, a noun that symbolizes weakness. Then the verb martyreo, which is also a Greek word, it means I bear witness. The word omega behind, the alphabet omega behind the verb martyrio means I bear witness. And for this case, for a martyr, you have to bear witness until death. And this is why martyrs, this is what all witnesses are called to. In fact, this is what Jesus called all of us to do. When we bear witness to the gospel, we have to use our whole being to bear witness to it, even to the point of death. So Saint Teresa of Jesus, a saint whom Saint Edith Stein or Saint Teresa Benedicta of Cross loved so much, once wrote in The Way of Perfection, "For don't you know yet, sisters, that the life of a good religious who desires to be one of God's close friends is a long martyrdom." So the long martyrdom doesn't really mean that you are going to die a physical death in that sense. It can also mean that you have been modified and then you have to kill your own desire, your own will in order to conform to God's will. And this is what Saint Teresa Benedicta of the Cross goes through. And then throughout the whole course of this talk, we are going to base the word martyrs and how she sees it and how she lives it. Now in the exhibition, of Edith Stein in Spain after her death. A passport photograph that you see right now, taken in December 1938, was displayed in the gallery. This stern-looking, perhaps the most well-known photograph of her in habit, which the church used in all publications concerning her beatification and canonization, gave us an immediate impression that this sour-faced saint was not the lively, witty person that we had so often read. Now, during the time when the photograph was taken, right, she might already prepare herself that death is imminent, and here she didn't really want to put herself to harm. Okay. Where does this blue line come from? Never mind. So, according to the account of her novice mistress, Teresa Benedicta said, it is signed the life of a philosopher in Carmelite. She said, "For months I have been wearing next to my heart a piece of paper with the words of Matthew 10:23 written on it." So here it says, from the slip of paper it wrote, "But whenever they persecute you in one city, flee to the next. For truly I say to you, you will not finish going through the cities of Israel until the Son of Man comes." So no trace of this letter to Carmel was discovered, nor the slip of paper has ever been founded. Okay, the reason why this part of the footnote was included is because, right, the author of this book, Teresa Benedicta, points out this, all of you can see right now, perhaps through the screen. When she wrote it, she was really not in her clear mind anymore, and she actually added some information into this writing, which later on her niece, Suzanne Bartdorf, tried to correct it. And our edition here, right, that is from ICS in 2005, she becomes the editor to this autobiography. It is because that this nun has already passed away since the 1967 or 70s. And this book has already left us a lot of legacies regarding about Edith Stein, that some of it are a little bit mythological, some are legendary, some might not be exactly true. So because of that, her niece is trying to clear up some story. Unfortunately, in our house, we didn't really have a book written by her niece, which called Unedited, which bears a even more better picture of it. But perhaps, hopefully, in the future, when we manage to get it, I manage to share more story regarding about her from it. Now, as we understood, as she wear this thing next to her chest, her flight to Switzerland, actually, after she went to Netherlands, failed, and she ended up as a martyr, whom we honor today. Now, the word martyr, just now we already recognize that. Ooh, sorry. But what on earth is this blue line doing here? Can anyone tell me that who drew it? Let me stop sharing a bit. Okay, all right.
Brother,
So,
sorry, brother, but the screen is so blurred. I think the fonts, I can't read them. But never mind.
screens are blurred.
I don't know.
Or will it be the internet connection of your place too?
I don't know. Anyway.
Can you see it right now?
No, it was blur for us as well.
Yeah, it's blur. It is blur also.
Okay, let me try to connect it to my font and we'll see whether it works or not.
But your voice is coming across very well. It's just a screen.
Mm-hmm. Your video is perfect.
So
it's only
it's only the, but sometimes it could be the internet connection, I think, that causes the problem. Let me try again and see. Is it okay to all of you?
It's same.
No, yeah.
Can't read.
It's the same.
It's okay. I think it's the font that the Brother George was using. Not to worry. I think let him just continue.
Yes,
Thank
yes.
you.
Can you see it, or a little bit difficult? If it's a little bit difficult, then I read out the whole thing. Perhaps you can see.
It is difficult because of the fonts that you are using.
Okay. So, okay, let's just go ahead. So actually the theme that I'm going to talk into is about the different martyrdoms, small and big, by her. So here we will highlighted some. Martyr, the true sense of the word. Martyr as a Jewish. Martyr as a Christian and a Carmelite. Martyr for truth. Martyr as a woman. And the one that we already covered just now is the true word. What does martyrdom really means? And this whole presentation, I'm not going to go according to the timeline of her life. So it's going to base on themes rather than timelines. So you are going to see the timelines, right, overlap each other, but I'm going to give you a different perspective of each and every one of them so that you can see and understand what it really means for her to live during that period of time and how to live as a martyr. Now, just a little bit of social economy of the late 19th and early 20th century of Germany. Now, around the early 1900s, Germany was considered one of the major European powers that were on the rise. Industrial revolution began to creep into the life of Germans, resulting in the rapid expanding of the working class. However, being a Jew in the late 19th to the early 20th century Germany was nothing but easy. Now, persecution of the Jews, right, was heightened, and blood purity became very important among the leaders of Nazi Germany. Now, laws were introduced, downgrading those who are of non-Aryan origin, which means those who are not pure blonde hair, those who are not like very white or blonde hair, primarily the Jews into the second-class citizens, even though they have been there even longer than some of the German people. It was around this time, right, that Edith Stein was born. A short period of stability during her childhood followed subsequently by a series of difficult events in her teenage years and adulthood. So now we are heading towards to how she was martyred as a Jewish people, as a Jew. Now, Edith and Yom Kippur has very, very strict relations. Yom Kippur is a festival by the Jewish people, and we'll see why. And in this photo itself, right, as you can see, that is taken around 1894, is a family portrait of the Stein family. Now, among them, you have a montage. Father Wilfried Stein is a montage. That's because after the death, in one of the business trip, the rest of the family felt that something is missing, and they didn't really have a group photo before or a family portrait before, so they decided to go and take it. So using olden day Photoshop technique, her father, which is actually a passport size photo, was montaged into this photo itself. And among all these photos, you can see her brothers and sisters. All of them, there are supposed to be 8 of them. Unfortunately, 4 of them, including her, died in the concentration camp, 2 in Auschwitz, the other 2 in other places in the following year. So Rosa and Edith died in Auschwitz, the consecrated camp, and then Paul, the brother, as well as the sister, Frida. Over here, did I put her name? Nope. Over here, yes, over here is known as Elfriede, was martyred as well, but in a different camp altogether. Now, Edith was born in 1891, and she was born in the annual feast of Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, in October the 12th, 1891. Now, her mother, Auguste, being a pious Jewish, was quite impressed by this coincidence. She always stressed and considered Yom Kippur regardless which date it fell in later years to be her youngest daughter Edith's actual birthday. Now, what is Yom Kippur then? Yom Kippur is actually known as the Day of Atonement. It's also known as Sabbat Sabbaton, which means the greatest of Sabbath in the Bible. And it is the most solemn Jewish religious holiday ever observed in the year. And it always took place around September and October. Now, this day was usually marked with fasting, penitence, and prayer. Yom Kippur is actually a day when sins are confessed and expiated, which means freed, which means it's like confession like that. And it is also the day where man and God are reconciled. So we can actually look into the book Leviticus in the Old Testament, where it actually showed this scene where Aaron laid both of his hands on the heads of two goats, of the live goats, and confessed over it all the iniquities. So at first, Aaron will cast a lot. One of the goats will be offered to the Lord in the temple, the other one to Azazel, who is supposed to be the demon, or to the wilderness. So the one that offers to Azazel, Aaron or the priest will lay his hands on top of it, confess all the sins and iniquities of the people of Israel. And then later on, this goat is going to be sent in the wilderness for good. And this day actually impressed Edith. And according to her, all this ritual has come to an end. That is for sure. But even at present, the day is observed, right, with prayer and fasting. Whoever preserves, but a trace of Judaism goes to the temple on this day. I was especially attracted to the ritual of this particular holiday when one refrained from taking any food or drink for 24 hours or more. And this is actually written in in her autobiography, which is unfinished, Life in a Jewish Family. And over here, we can actually see how the mother was really, really fascinated about this day. Here from an extract, it says that I was born on the Day of Atonement, and my mother always considered it as my real birthday, although celebrations and gifts were always forthcoming on October 12th. So even though she was born in this pious family, right, a pious mother, but the whole family is not really that pious, to be frank. Unlike the book written by Teresa Benedicta that says that the whole family was really, really pious, but in fact, yes, only until a certain extent. Yes, the mother is very pious, but certain things that refers to the book saying about how all the festival was celebrated is not exactly true. It's pretty much of a hagiography, so to speak. However, if the mother of Edith Stein was given a chance to glean approximately 50 years later through the cruel fate of Edith, right, she might overlook the juxtapositions of Edith's birth with this holiday. So, as we know that on that day itself, the scapegoat in the ritual was sent into the wilderness, and in the imitation of the redemptive action of the Messiah in her newfound faith, which is in Christianity, after her period of non-believing in God, between her Jewish and Christian stage of her life, Edith would consciously offer herself as a sacrifice of atonement for peace, that if possible, the Antichrist might be broken, in the gas chamber of Auschwitz in 1942. So for Edith, a journey from Holland, or from the Netherlands to be more exact, into the East, echoes the way of the cross like Jesus to Golgotha and to the gas chamber became the cross that she died in August the 9th, 1942. So from then on, nothing was mentioned about her death, including the rest of the deported Jews, until this document comes about, which unfortunately is in German or in Netherlands language. This in English is called the Dutch Official Gazette. And in February the 16th, 1950, they got the news that Edith Stein and Rosa passed away in the gas chamber. And according to one of the nephew of Edith Stein, Gerhard Stein, my experience with my aunt Edith, he said that at the time, it was not known that those who were deported to the East were murdered immediately upon arrival. That is true because according to their lifetime, when some of the family members flee to, let's say, California and Argentina. I remember one of the nephew was trapped in the concentration camp, but he was released after that, and he managed to get a passport to flee to these two places. But in this case, they have no idea how Auschwitz was like, because Auschwitz was really new that time. And only 2 years later, when after its opening, then they know that Auschwitz camp is actually the worst camp in all of Germany. It is a place where people died, gassed to death. And some of the few young Jewish workers who were able to escape, right, narrates this whole truth to the Jewish community in Germany. Now, as a Jewish descent and her working life, we know that she too faced a lot of problems in her life as a Jewish. So even though she was born and spent most of her time in an imperial and later democratic Germany, Hitler's anti-Semitic reign has not yet existed, even though that, which means during the World War I, the whole anti-Semitism, Nazi policies haven't really existed yet. But as early as 1800, German nationalists and journalists make German Jews into a convenient scapegoat for both political and economical problems of its age, blaming the Jews for opposing and sabotaging the unification of German state, as well as the main cause of the Great Depression in Germany. So such conspiracy were perpetrated even during and after World War I, where it is noted that Edith and her friend, Susan Mundant, while helping in the Lazaretto as nurses during their service with the Red Cross, had to accept anti-Semitic remarks almost as their daily bread. So as you can see from her own autobiography, it is actually known that anti-Semitic remarks is always made. But because she doesn't really look like a Jew in the first place, she didn't really get it that often. But whenever they were talking about this anti-Semitic remarks around her, she will always say that, look, I'm also a Jew. And as you can see from her write-out, she says that, well, by the way, this used to astound people since no one took me to be a Jewish exactly. On the other hand, as we know that professional jobs such as academic career were very limited, a Jew can only be terminated at the level of assistant professor unless she converted to Christianity. So according to Edith, because of her family's Jewish background, and because of the Victoria School, the school that she's teaching during that time, as Professor Lengert once mentioned at one of the conferences, had always been considered a Protestant, neither she nor her older sister Else would have any prospects of employment in the institutions of former years, which means before World War I. Now, when World War I broke out, all the men, whether you are young, you are able, you were all sent to war. So because all the men was in war, there are actually lacking of people teaching in different institutions. And this is where women comes in. And Edith Stein is actually one of them who is lucky to even get a job as an assistant professor in this school. So in the photos that you can see here, in one of the texts written down here, some of you might not be able to see it. It says that Edith Stein as an assistant instructor with her students from Victoria School, the school that she is teaching. And here, according to this photo itself, right, she says that, well, on the Sunday walk, Sunday picnic day, they feel like just like those bankers going around with their guitar, singing and playing and so on. So it is still considered pretty much a tranquil day, even though it is during World War I. Somehow, as we know that things went from bad to worse after Adolf Hitler had rose into power and published Mein Kampf, his bitter anti-Semitic autobiography in 1225. Jobs for the Jews was sparse, and Edith, after leaving her teaching careers at St. Magdalena in 1931, had found job hunting difficult, even for a person as famous as she. Now, her teaching applications, right, to universities of Frankfurt and Breslau, which is current day, modern day Wrocław, Poland, simply fell through or didn't make it simply because she is a Jew. Even her later appointment as a lecturer in the Catholic Pedagogical Institute, the photos on the right there you see, right, in Munster, would soon be denied to her within less than a year of her career. And it was here that Edith concluded that once again, God's hand lay heavy on his people and that the destiny of these people was her own. So being a Jew during that time is very tough. I believe that most of us here, we might find it the same too, especially if you have to go through the whole system of education, let's say in Malaysia. So let's say we have a certain percentage of people or a group of race who manage to go into public universities, but certain percentage of elite groups with a lower percentage can go to a university, even though they might be brilliant, they might not be accepted. So this is pretty much the case in Germany during that time. Now, regarding about stereotype, right? We know that after she entered Carmel, she faced a lot of all these things, all these problems too as well, but she take it very lightly. That's because that as a true disciple of St. John of the Cross, who once say that those who are in the monasteries are craftsmen, right? Placed there by God to mortify you by working and chiseling at you. For her, she accepted it greatly. And in the monastery where no one is perfect, one is work and try to virtue through sharp words, deeds, and temperance of those in whom one is living with. So in pretty much later on in her life, when she was celebrating her 50th birthday in Holland or in Netherlands, knowing almost her last, the sisters in that community decided to come up with a sketch or a drama for recreation to cheer her. Now, this playwright or this pious sketch featuring Old Testament patriarchs and prophets, knowing the strong attachment that Edith had for the Jewish people. Now, it is not the fault of the sisters, you know, because they are working with limited resources, research and brainstorming. And the sisters finally came out with the necessary costumes and props for the big day. So as you can see here, when the little Moses appeared, walked onto the stage wearing a very big nose and the tablet of law made out of the previous week's kitchen list, a popular caricature of a Jew since 1800s, Edith was out laughing actually. Not that she tolerates such mockery of the Jewish people, but in fact, she ought to be angry. But she knew that the play was meant in good part, that she knew that the sisters were simply just ignorant. As you know that in popular press during that time, Jews were always depicted with a very big nose, as you can see from this picture right now. They always have big nose, crooked ones as well, and they are usually very, very short. And it is just only to make fun of them. I think in Malaysian context, we might even face that problem. Sometimes we have stereotypes for each others, for example. Like, for example, for Chinese, you will call them mata sepet, for example, or even for Indians, they will call them drunkards and all these sorts of stuff. All these are stereotyping. And it is something that is not very foreign, even during Edith Stein time. So all these things, right, helps her, the self-forgetfulness. So when she faced martyrdom itself, as you can see from this eyewitnesses Van Camping in Westerbork, a little town where the train decided to stop, where all the Jewish people, right, would get parcels or letters or even send out letters to their loved ones and so on. There, one of the witnesses noticed that Edith continues to remain very calm and self-controlled, surrendering herself in the sure hands of God without even say anything about her personal experience, only remain mindful of those who are in need. So she was always in mind of those people around her. And I believe that in one of the movie, The Seventh Chamber, it shows some scene that is like that she's always around, taking care of other people. And this is part of her formation. And also there was one remark by one of the eyewitnesses, Pierre Coopers, who jokingly offers her a cigarette in order to lighten the tension. she laughingly admitted that in her formal student life, she has certainly smoked cigarettes and even danced. So, you know, sometimes saints also smoke and also do dancing as well. And this only further proves that her newfound faith, right, in the cross did not really weaken her tie with Judaism, but strengthens it. So in the midst of the pain, she can be one with her people, something that she was not accustomed to do even in the past. Now, as we are proceeding to the second part, Martyr as a Christian Carmelite, we are going to read a short passage from Cardinal Ratzinger. Cardinal Ratzinger said, from a Jewish heritage, when he talked about Edith Stein, he said that from a Jewish heritage, she moved to a new and different heritage. Yet by entering into unity with Christ, she entered into the real heart of Judaism. And next to this, you will see the baptismal font used by Edith Stein in the Church of St. Martin, Bad Berzamben, in this little church, in this little church. And in this place, right, as we all know, as it is written here, she was baptized on the 1st of January, 1922. And to bear in mind, in the old calendar, January the 1st, 1922, it was not the solemnity of Our Lady, Mother of God. It was actually the feast day of the circumcision of Jesus after his birth. And during this period of time, the researcher as well as theologians, right, regarding about her, felt that she chose this day purposely in order to make us understand that her tie with Judaism is so strong that the two of them cannot be separated. Now, Edith Stein's conversion to Christianity, unlike most people who believe and wrote about, was never a decision made overnight. Now, according to her autobiography, the one that I mentioned earlier on, her first encounter with Christianity was actually during the time when she was in the University of Breslau, 1911. Oh, this is the baptismal cert, by the way. Sorry to go a little bit too fast. As you know that Edith Stein was not really her baptismal name. Her baptismal name was known as Teresa Hedwig. And over here, Hedwig is the name of her godmother, who is not even a Catholic, because as we know that in Germany, the official religion during that time is Lutheran and was Lutheran. Perhaps right now it's still Lutheran, I'm not too sure. So while during the time of her baptism, they need to ask for dispensation, especially in the case of the godmother. And at the bottom left of this baptismal book writes that the last entry referring to Edith's vows as a Carmelite. Now, as we know that just now, noted that just now, her conversion story, right, is not really immediate like most of us remembered. You know, I remember I read a lot of articles regarding about her conversion story. A lot of people would say that her conversion took place just only one night. She was reading the life of St. Teresa and she became a Christian immediately, just like that. But the problem is her conversion to Christianity is a very long process. It starts even in 1911. First, she encountered the gospel, the New Testament, but during the time when she read it, because she was learning Latin, it has no religious impact on her, even though she recognized that Jesus' deed is actually very noble. Then she went through a long rationalistic prejudices phase, or you want to call it the atheistic phase, where she idled away from her Jewish faith until she attended the talk or conferences by Max Scheler, also a very brilliant philosopher who was a Catholic during that time. And during the time when she met him, he was in his Catholic faith. So a lot of his reasoning has a very strong Catholic background, and this actually astounds her. But her real encounter with the cross through the life is actually through the life of a late professor, Adolf Regnert, who died during World War I, during the fight itself in November 16, 1917. And it is through the wife of this professor Anne Reinach, who continued to put all her faith and hope in the saving power of the cross after the death of her husband, right, that became a main catalyst for Edith Stein to convert because it struck her so much. It says that how can people who face so much agony and anger, especially the death of the loving husband like this, can accept it? And what is this cross that this woman is embracing too? So because of that, Edith Stein started to felt strongly attracted to Christianity. Now, even the works of Teresa of Jesus, right? She didn't really read it even in 1921, you know. As early as 1919, according to one of her friends, Gertrude Koepner, a Jewish woman, who began to study phenomenology with her in 1918, Edith was already reading some of the works of Teresa aloud in 1919. But certainly not until 1921, right? When the life of our mother, Holy Mother Teresa, came into her hands, then she becomes converted. Now, a lot of hagiographers, even including Teresa Renata Poinsett, this book itself, which says that her conversion took place in the house of Hedwig Conrad, the future godmother of Edith Stein. But unfortunately, during the beatification process, which took place in 1960-something, the publication of the beatification process was not published until the 1980s. So as you can see, from 1960s to 1980, this huge range of time of approximately 20 to 30 years, every single one of us have been believing the fact that Edith Stein's decision to enter into Christianity was actually took place in her home. But according to Hedwig Conrad, she didn't really have the book of the life. So it is interesting to know that in the beatification proceeding itself, the sister of Adolf Regnant, who swear in during that time, mentioned that in May 27, 1921, the life of our Holy Mother Teresa was actually a parting gift from Anne Reinach. So rather Edith Stein, rather than found this book miraculously in the farmhouse or in the house of Hedwig, it was actually a parting gift from Anne Reinach. Now, whether her conversion took place in that house or not, we have no idea, because we can actually reason that perhaps during her time when she was on the train itself towards to the place where her godma stays, the future godma stays, she has been reading the book, or during the night itself when she's freer, she can read the book and then decided to say that, okay, my long search for true faith ended. No one really knows that. It always has been remained a secret to every single one of us, even to us Carmelite as well. Now, her conversion sparks out a lot of controversy. And this is not something that's really surprising. For a Jewish people to be converted into Christianity, it is an apostasy. So during the day of beatification in Germany during that time, a rabbi from the Cologne synagogue made this remark: when someone leaves the Jewish community and embraces a different faith, we may regret it, but we cannot view such a person as a great son or a great daughter of Israel. Sounds surprising, isn't it? So this, right, he expressed that this is to tell us that, right, when a person who was converted from Jewish background to Catholicism, it means that you are also abandoning your own people of your faith, which explains why there are so many people who resent of her conversion, especially from her family members, precisely because of this thing in view. So which is why for Saint Teresa Benedicta of the Cross, her conversion story is never that easy. Because of that, she has to suffer one great martyrdom from the mother. as we can see from the story itself, among all those who were heartbroken and struggled with Edith's decision was actually her own mother, Augustine, to whom Edith always ready to care for. In order to appease her mother, right, sometimes Edith will accompany her mother to new synagogue, which already destroyed in 1938, to pray the Psalms. This devout act of praying together definitely in some ways impressed her mother, but she never did reconcile with her daughter's conversion to Catholicism, never did. On the meantime, Edith continued to study more about her faith, her great zeal for the eternal truth, and the thirst for knowledge even made her saintly spiritual director, Canon Joseph Swingt, exclaim in disbelief. So 12 years have passed. Edith found herself on a crossroad in life again. Her career as a professor in Germany has come to an end. So her yearning to join Carmel since the time of her baptism has become even stronger. So in order not to leave her mother and continue to stay in Germany, rather than to work abroad, Edith, with the blessings of Abbot Raphael Wasser, her spiritual director, after the death of Canon Joseph Swingt, applied to Cologne Carmel at the age of 42, a very, very high age for a woman to enter into Carmel during those times. So the very next day, her application was approved, but the joyous moment was accompanied by the bitter cry of her mother, Augustine. Now, her mother, narrated by Edith Stein, right, throughout her whole life has never cried before. Edith had never seen her mother cry. But during that day, when Edith decided to approach her mother and say, "Mom, I would like to enter Carmel," she broke into tears without saying a single word. And the two of them embraced each other and cried together. So, as you can see from the chronology here, Edith's life in a Jewish family. Edith's mother never wrote personally in the first year, or Edith spent in the first year or Edith's time when she was in Carmel. Only one day in autumn of 1935, she decided to write a few lines to Edith and to the superior in Cologne at a conclusion of Rosa's letter. This was the greatest consolation for Edith, for whom her mother's sadness has always been a constant source of sorrow for her. The photos that you see here is a photo of porcelain Edith Stein wearing a wedding gown before her clothing as a novice in April 15, 1934. For her, it's a great event, but during this period of time, none of her family member was there for her. But in the chapel, it was crowded with philosophers and people from high status, which actually struck the nun a lot, because the nun was like, wow, where did all these people come from and how do they know this girl? And precisely because of that, her life continued to remain an awe to the community of Cologne as well for many times to come. So, sorry. Okay. The next point on Secretum Meum Mihi. Now, although most of Edith Stein's friends were converts, none of them agree on the choices that she made. Now, her future godmother, Hedwig Conrad Matthias, as you can see from the photo itself, is the only woman in the Philosophical Society of Hassel. Also, one of Edith's closest friends, experienced some reciprocal aggression between the two of them because of the different denominational directions that they were heading to after a period of religious crisis. So according to the brief introduction here that we can see, it's actually written by her friend, but unfortunately it's still in German right now. And I only get an extract of it on the internet in English that says that how the two of them decided to fight, because their minds are totally different. One is a Lutheran mind, the other one is a Catholic mind. So they fight on each other. So in order to end the discussion always, Saint Teresa or Saint Edith Stein always will end the conversation with, "My secret is for myself." So none of us, even including her godmother, know the reason why she was converted. Until perhaps in later days, it appears in one of her letters that is just only recently published in 2014, that she mentioned that Saint Teresa was a Catholic. But during that time, no one really knows why she was converted. We know that this fight does not really last very long, because after that fight itself, we know that the friends comes together, and then at the end, Hedwig becomes her godmother, and then she also adopts Hedwig as her baptismal name. Now, since young, as we know that from the narrations from other testimony, we know that Edith Stein was actually known as the book sealed with 7 seals, because she hardly disclosed any of her feelings to anyone. Henceforth, we can only speculate her conversion. So as a conclusion, this little conflict, Hedwig comes to a conclusion that the inner life of such a person lies in the mysteries of God, and we are not supposed to judge them. So for this, of a conversion story, we put it to the close because we seriously have no idea how it is. The photos over here that you see is the Cologne Carmel that Edith Stein entered. This Cologne Carmel does not exist anymore because it was destroyed and was bombed in World War II. But currently it was rebuilt in a different manner on the same site itself. Other than that, we know that living in Carmel is a daily martyrdom, just like what St. Teresa of Jesus said. So according to accounts of some of the sisters, because she came in so late and she was so well pampered throughout her whole life, she never did chores before in her life. So over here, you have a once most famous and popular speaker outside of the cloister entered into postulancy, and she has to learn everything from scratch. She was extremely left-handed in the kitchen. Her sewing skills were so bad that they need to unpack it. And they need to unpack it and redo it. And supposedly her sweeping techniques is also so bad that everyone thought that he was dragging a dog, dragging a broom, going over the place. This is how bad her life is. I think being one of the youngest child in the house, right, usually you'll be exempted from all these things. Most of the house chores was done by your elder sisters and brothers. So all these things are nothing to her. And now she has to learn to humble herself and to take out all these things again and to work with it. Now we come towards to one of the darkest period of her life, the persecutions after the pastoral letter. Now, while St. Edith Stein, Benedictus of the Cross, was still in Cologne Carmel, something happened in Germany. We call it the Kristallnacht, or the Night of the Broken Glass. And this is the night that happens between November the 9th until 10th of November in 1938. And this night opens a lot of people's eyes because you can literally smell fear and death throughout the whole streets of Germany in the morning of November 10. And Jewish citizens have been driven from their homes at night, and their business were demolished and expropriated. With one blow, the whole livelihood of the Jews, right, has been swept away. The synagogues were on fire, even the one that Edith Stein and her mother used to frequent a lot in the past. But no one dared to level accusation out loud. So at the end of that year, in the darkness of New Year's Eve, a friend of Cologne Carmel, Dr. Paul, drove Edith Stein across the Dutch border by car. So, though she safely arrived to that Carmel, I think, I can't really pronounce the name, it spells at ECHT, and her sister Rosa, who joins later, her peaceful stay in that Carmel, or the Carmel in Netherlands, does not really last very long. So on the 26th of July, 1942, the Dutch bishop decided to issue a pastoral letter condemning the deportation of the Jewish publicly, asking all priests in the diocese to read it during Mass, requesting all Dutch Catholics to reflect on their silent submission and the anti-Semitic involvement. Now, this is something that is really sad, and this letter has a lot of consequences. That's because on the 10th of May, 1940, when the Nazis invade Holland, the Christian churches, right, even though they start to protest the deportation of the Jews, were silenced by the Nazis. And they come up with a bargain with the churches. And The clause is this: if church authorities agree to keep silence about the deportation of Jews, protection and exemption of converted Jews were guaranteed. So which means if you are a Lutheran pastor or if you are a Catholic bishop, you decided not to say anything about the deportation of Jews during that time, your Jewish convert, whether they are nuns, religious, or people who or lay person who are actually Jewish convert, they were safe. But the Catholics did not oblige to it, except for those who are, except from the Lutheran Church, who decided to accept this bargain, right, and choose to keep quiet, but the Catholic Church rebelled against it. So in this July 20, this letter came out. Then next, we all know that the deportation of Catholic Jews begins. So it was about on 2nd of August, 1942, around 5 p.m., Edith Stein's passions began. While she and the other nun were meditating in the chapel, the Nazi officers came and arrested both her and her sister Rosa. Before they walked to the corner and the waiting van, Edith reached for Rosa's hand and said, "Come, let us go for our people." And they went into the van that drove them to Calvary. Now, this concept of offering one's death for another is not a Jewish concept, but a Christian one. So according to Edith, since we are all members of the body of Jesus Christ, whose death is considered a redemptive act, every human suffering assumes a redeeming power through him. Therefore, her life, her self-offering and death had a purpose for all: the physical salvation of her fellow Jews and the spiritual salvation of Catholics and Christians. So in her last will and testimony, as you can see it from here, that is composed in June 9th, 1939, she wrote that she offered her life for the Jewish people, the deliverance of Germany and world peace, the destruction of the Antichrist, meaning implied the Hitler and Nazism, and for all my relatives, that none of them may be lost. Other than that, we know that she continued to fight for peace even before she entered. So I remember in February 2003, in this most controversial letter to Pope Pius XI, resurfaced from the Vatican Secret Archive. And here we have an extract from it. It says that it shows her concern as a Jewish convert during that time. She said that we all who are faithful children of the church and who see the conditions in Germany with open eyes fear the worst for the prestige of the church if the silence continues any longer. We are convinced that this silence will not be able in the long run to purchase peace with the present German government. For the time being, the fight against Catholicism will be conducted quietly and less brutally than against the Jewry, but no less systematically. So this is a letter written in April the 12th, 1933. Now the Pope did admit that he received the letter through one of the cardinal, but yet we did not receive any news about it after a very long time. So the Pope has remained silent for one of the longest time. But what we know that in 1937, Pope Pius XI actually comes out with an encyclical, the first ever written in German, to address this situation in Germany. And in one of the paragraphs, it says that when in 1933, which is the time that St. Teresa Benedicta wrote this letter to him, I consented, venerable brethren, to open negotiations for a concordat. I wish to spare the faithful of Germany, as far as it was humanly possible, the trials and difficulties they have to face. In the furrow where I tried to sow the seeds of sincere peace, unfortunately, whatever things that we got during that time, it's just only evil. And which is why this encyclical comes about in order to refute the false ideology of the Nazis themselves. But unfortunately, it is too late. And we know that during that time, Nazism was already so well entrenched in the people, and the majority of Catholics and Christians were so blinded by the promises of Nazism and were too concerned with the modus vivendi under the new regime. So nothing have improved even during the quiet years of Edith in Carmel. So in 13th of June 1941, Edith came out with a dialogue, a religious state play between the prioress and between the superior, the prioress of that community, and the biblical Queen Esther as a form of recreation to celebrate Mother Antonia's birthday. So in this dialogue, we can see an extract that the church had blossomed, the people remained distant, far from the Lord and his mother. The mother ceaselessly pleads for the people. She seeks souls to help her pray. And in this so-called story itself, it is a plea for the community of nuns in Holland to continuously to pray for the deliverance from Haman, which is the Nazis, so that the people can flee from this crucial faith. So we know that this beautiful passage sooner or later become part of the beatification readings from our new saint here. So for some of us who went to Europe before, because Europe celebrate her feast day as a feast, we'll be able to read the reading from the Old Testament on Queen Esther regarding about this regard, to show us that how she from her part continued to pray for us, even through the silence and to the silence and the cloister of the community in Carmel. As we are pretty much running out of time, I will try to rush through other things regarding about how she was martyred for the truth. So while Edith Stein was alive, Edith was also known for a great zeal for witness for truth. So at a very young age, Edith already enjoyed the thrill of figuring difficult problems, in particular mathematics. She would sit on her desk the whole day trying to solve equations until the truth came to light. So this energy itself would actually help her for her quest for real truth even up until her adult life. And we know that she had a great desire to understand in an intellectual satisfying way. So the truth about reality and human existence through psychology, a new science developed during her time, and later philosophy. So unlike other students who accepted everything passively and carelessly from their professors, Edith herself use her careful, logical, and analytical thinking skills never allowed her to do so. Her motto is, "My desire for the truth was one sole prayer," has become her thing, even though Jewish faith, even she was really far away from her Jewish faith. So deep down within her, she was still crying out to know the ultimate truth, and many years would pass before she would discover that the truth she was looking for was not in her books and sciences, but in the eternal truth himself, Jesus Christ and the paradox of the cross. So this incident, as we know that Edith was trying to analyze and compartmentalize one of the experiences that she saw of Anne Regnant, a very good friend of her, whose husband, Adolf Regnant, who passed away. And she was trying to interiorize this cross that this woman is embracing and how she managed to embrace it with great calm. So through Edith's observations, scientific formulas, and even philosophical systems such as phenomenology by Dr. Edmund Husserl, which takes into rational consideration the evidence that one gains through both natural and supernatural experience, of little use in such situation. And here she realized that faith, right, in the cross began to allow her to go beyond natural understanding to supernatural understanding. So for this case, we will see a letter of her written to this friend of hers, Roman Incarnate, regarding about this fact. She was already a convert in 1928, and she has a big argument with this good friend of hers, Roman, regarding about this issue. And she believed that as a philosopher, herself, philosophy has its own limitation. And this is what she wrote. Concerning my dignity as a philosopher, I'm convinced, not only according to religion, but also to philosophy, there are many things that lie beyond the limits of natural possibility of knowledge. Philosophy, understood as a science of pure natural knowledge, as you without doubt conceive it, can just recognize this as its limit. However, then it is philosophical consistent to respect the limits and absurd to want to bring out something on the other side the limits with purely philosophical means. So here, as we can see from the next slide, that during the time when she wrote a letter to, not a letter, an article for Edmund Husserl's 70th birthday, she comes up with this little dialogue between Edmund Husserl and Thomas Aquinas. According to her, in a mouthpiece of Thomas Aquinas, that faith itself is not irrational. So for philosophy, even though it's a matter of ratio, for me, according to Thomas Aquinas, in a broad sense that includes natural and supernatural reason, and you gather, of course, from what I was just saying, that I do not take faith to be irrational at all, that is having nothing to do with truth and falsehood. On the contrary, faith is a way to truth. Indeed, in the first place, it is a way to truth, plural, which would otherwise be close to us. And in the second place, it is the surest way to truth. Now, sounds like a lot of bombastic word going in here. Natural reasons, which means that the reasons that we can use our own ability to reason. We can use our mind, our intellect, our view, our memory to reason things and to arrive into a conclusion. And that is what natural reason means. Supernatural reasons, right, is actually something that is not from us, but infused in us. That is faith. So for Aquinas, faith is one of the surest way. And in fact, to think it more clearly and to put it more clearly, most of us take things also in faith. Like we will use the word that I have faith in you because you are my doctor, you know what is best for me. Or I have faith in this solution because this solution is the best. Or I have faith in this medication because it's the best. So we use faith like this so sparingly until we already lose sight of the real meaning of it. But for here, in St. Thomas Aquinas' case, faith, right, help us to see something that we can't see and to leap and to do that leap into something that is even greater than us. So how about her mother as a woman then? Just like one of you who mentioned just now that she's a feminist, yes, she was a feminist, but perhaps not a feminist in our current time, but of her time. So besides being a brilliant seeker of truth, Edith was also a well-known feminist, and she was one of the first women who entered university who passed a doctorate with flying colors, the summa cum laude, which I didn't even get. A woman who fought for equal rights to votes and so on. So her works and writings on women are so important that anyone who reads the encyclical of Pope John Paul II on the dignity and vocation of women and his more recent letter to women will see her shadows in them. So over here, I decided to quote some of the things from the letter of Pope John Paul II to women. And it says, "Thank you, every woman, for the simple fact of being a woman. Through the insight which is so much a part of your womanhood, you enrich the world's understanding and help to make human relations more honest and authentic." This is precisely what she will say too as well. And more so here in his encyclical Mulieris Dignitatem, or the dignity and vocation of women on the occasions of the Marian year, the bold writing here, "She would become Theotokos," also signifies the fullness of the perfection of what characteristic of woman, of what is feminine. It's actually, I can say, a paraphrase of what St. Teresa Benedicta of the Cross wrote earlier on in her years. Now, when she was fighting for women's rights, she also wrote this. The pure image of feminine nature stands before our eyes in the Immaculata, the Virgin. As Theotokos, that is, Mother of God, maternity itself is glorified to her. As Virgin, she manifests an incomparable beauty pleased to God, along with the fruitfulness of virginal purity. As Queen, she evidences the conquering power of a serving love and purity intact. Every woman who wants to fulfill her destiny must look to Mary as ideal. So, as you can see, from this to this, it's just pretty much a paraphrasing of who Mary is to us and why we should follow her as an example. Now, during her time, the Nazis also employ another tactic to ask women to work for them or to fight for them, to fight with them. And this is the Juvenmord, Kirch, Kuches, and Kingdom. I don't know whether I pronounce it correctly, but it means church, kitchen, and children. According to the United States of Holocaust Memorial Museum, on the women in the third range, here we know that the National Socialist Women's Union and German Women's Agency used Nazi propaganda to encourage women to focus on their role as wives and mothers. Besides increasing the population, the regime also sought to enhance its racial purity through species upgrading, notably by promulgating laws prohibiting marriage between Aryans and non-Aryans, while preventing those with handicaps and certain diseases from marrying at all. Now, this is true, even though they have schools, even though women's work during that time, but they always work in this sort of ambience where they will try to teach women to behave as good, obedient wives and mothers. And for those single ladies, they are even encouraged to even have extramarital affairs with some of the military officers and so on in order to have more children for the nation. So it is by promulgating this way, they managed to purge all the other races who are not pure Aryans, which means you are not blonde hair or you are not pure German, out of this world. And it is one of the darkest time in Germany, definitely, even for women. Though they work, but they work in this way. Now for St. Edith Stein, she has a different point of view regarding about working class women. For her, it is not just only women, as in being mother and stay in home and cook in the kitchen and taking care of your children. It's not so much on that. For her, right, other natural feminine vocation, it can be work, works of any kind, even for example, nursing, education, social works, and even in politics. That's because that she believed that the maternal instinct or the feminine instincts of women can contribute something that is very different in the work society. For example, we always talk about feminine or women's touch. Women tend to be more neat in organizing things and so on. And she, as a philosopher, as well as a psychologist, understand that while men will look perhaps in the bigger picture during her time, women tend to look into the slightest detail that goes around the place. And here we can actually see in one of the extract from Ethos of Women's Profession written by her. She said that there is no profession which cannot be practiced by women. Individual gifts and tendencies can lead to the most diversified activities, even those remote from the usual feminine vocations. For example, even engineering, mathematics, physics, and so on. Basically, the same spiritual attitude which the wife and the mother need is needed here also, except that it is extended to a wider working circle, detached from the vital bond of blood relations. So which means, right, as a woman, even though you are married or not married, you will tend to put in your ability to solve things in a feminine and a woman way for the company or for a greater good, even in the country itself. So over here, you know that she used an example that is very dear to her, that is Mary at the wedding of Cana. One of the very good examples she used is this. she said that Mary, during the wedding of Cana, she's quiet, she's observing, looks, surveys everything, and discovers what is lacking in the situation, in the place itself. So before anything is noticed, even before embarrassment sets in, she has procured a remedy, yet she did not even draw attention to herself. And this is a prototype of woman in professional life should be. So all this motherly instinct helps in a lot of ways some big companies to solve crises. I think during the whole pandemic period itself, already discovered that in countries where they say they're run by women presidents and prime ministers, in general, their pandemic and even COVID cases rate, they are actually the lowest. I'm not too sure how true it is right now, but yet there are this speculation that women tends to love cleanliness and all this sorts of stuff. But perhaps this is just only a stereotyping idea that I have right now. But in the opinion of Edith Stein, that is pretty much the case. Other than that, she is also fighting for womanhood, but in a very different way. Maternal vocation here bears different connotations in Edith Stein writing. It can mean motherhood, which means a real mother, or it can mean motherliness, which means a woman's ability to empathize other people using their female instincts and so on. So over here it says, according to Edith, if women decide to make the means, there is public achievement into the end, it would be disastrous. For no one than women can preserve within the human society those immeasurable spiritual values, that is love, the work of a mother is hidden, and self-sacrifice, the reward of being a mother is intangible. Specifically, those who upheld their maternal vocation as mothers, like the Theotokos. Now, even though she encouraged women to go to the workforce to work, but she also encouraged those mothers to not forget their real vocation as mothers. There are times that mothers in working profession tends to neglect family life, and that is something for her. It is actually something that is very disastrous and dangerous, because either the two heads in the house, which is the husband and the wife, they don't want to go together and start to quarrel and the house fall apart, or the children will sooner or later start to follow the footsteps of the mother. And for her, even though, yes, working life is important, but family life is also important. And yet, as a mother, tough as it were, and she also agreed that it is tough, every woman, especially mothers, have to balance this out. And because of that, I'm sure if she lives in today's world, she will be highly and deadly persecuted, because who on earth, especially youngsters nowadays who get married and have a life, wants to have children anymore and want to take care of their own family. For them, I think the famous line would be, my time is mine, your time is also mine, my money is mine, and your money is mine too. So world view has changed, and it is really sad. And definitely it is time when she wants to speak to these people, literally have to drill in very, very badly and hardly into the minds of the people nowadays to say that, look, yes, your achievements is important, but definitely the life of self-giving is even more important than that. Now, to come to an end in a nutshell, and sorry for all the unable to read text, perhaps because of the colors and so on, I will try to be aware of it. And it is not really hard to see why the Catholic Church decided to canonize Edith Stein in the first place. And from the time of her birth, even until the time of her death, she showed herself a puzzling paradox of a saint, just like the cross she loved. She was the bridge between the Jews and Catholics, and a feminist philosopher who managed to harmonize faith and reason in her life as well as her works. Although she died a cruel death, we knew that she never died in vain. She died a Jew, showing us that they too deserve our respect and honor. She died a Catholic and a Carmelite, defending the rights of the oppressed and continue to uphold the agape love for all, even those who harmed her. She died a woman, as one who promoted the dignity of feminine and maternal vocation. She died a seeker of truth, as one who demonstrated to us that the real truth is the one that we should seek in life. So most of all, she died for all, reminding us the mysteries, goodness, and values that all these things, peoples, and ideals embrace. For we are all sons of God through faith in Christ Jesus. There is neither Jew or Greek. There is neither slave nor free man. There is neither male nor female. For you are all one in Christ Jesus. And if you belong to Christ, then you are Abraham's descendants, as according to promise. And this is the presentation of mine tonight. And perhaps if you have any questions, all of you can ask right now, I guess. I hope I won't go too haphazardly with my presentation and trying to rush with time. And I apologize by the text that is not readable, but I try to read as much as for all of you to see. So if you have any question right now, you may ask. No questions? Too complicated?
No, I just like to say thank you very much, Brother George.
Thank you to Brother George. Very detailed
you.
and very informative.
Thank you. But perhaps it's too much information, I think.
Brother George, Brother George, I'm Cynthia here.
Yes.
Thank you for the share. I would like to ask a question regarding there were people who lobby for her to be a doctor of the church. Based on what spiritual doctrine would that be?
It's tough because being a doctor of the church, right? Most likely they are going to lobby on her philosophical exegesis.
But then that is
most likely.
that's
Okay, I can't hear you because of the feedback.
because she is an intellectual.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is very academic in that sense. But it's like doctor of the church, like Saint Teresa is so different. It's a spiritual doctrine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed. In fact, most of our doctors of the church, right, if you really read them or if you really study them, some of them are very, very philosophical as well as theological, and sometimes it's very hard to follow. It's just that our Carmelite doctors in general, they talk more about spiritual life, and which is something that people in general during their time never covers, like for example that of Saint Teresa and Saint John of the Cross, which is why they are known as the doctors of the interior life. And for Saint Teresa of Lisieux, it's a little bit different. Perhaps without the help of Saint John Paul II, she might not even be a doctor, because a lot of people ask, why, how can a little girl of 24 years old become a doctor to all of us? But for her, for Saint Teresa, it will be, the highlight will be on the little way, which is so simple that people was astonished that they never think of that before. But perhaps Saint Teresa of the Cross, that one, it will be definitely some of her philosophical works that will get into place lah. Yeah, but we still have to see. But I don't think her doctorate will come so soon as we all hope.
What book on Edith Stein would you recommend us to read regarding the normal philosophical teaching?
You know, for preparing this talk, as I showed Carmelo just now at 8 o'clock just now, to prepare this talk, you need to at least to have this amount of books.
No way.
Okay.
Wow. well researched.
But first and foremost, to make your life easier, this book, The Hidden Life, it is a very good book to start with, because it is less philosophical and it is more theological, and it is more straightforward, unlike the rest of her writings that will dwell in the words for so long until you just get lost in her minds of thoughts. So this one would be a good starter.
Yeah, one that would reflect her inner thoughts. I think that would be better.
Her inner thoughts actually appears in a lot of her works, because sometimes when she shares her thoughts, she can be very personal too as well. But I would recommend some of you to, if you have time, letters are one of the nicer ones to read because they are usually short. Now you have 2 books. The letters are usually nice work to read because they are short, and sometimes they are great explanation of why she write it that way and why that thing happened. Other than that, if you have the time, then you can dwell into other books. Like for example, if you would like to know her more, this is a hagiography book, which means that the life that is written here is not exactly 100% her life. It has been, you know how hagiographers sometimes they write regarding about a saying, right? So sometimes they will interpret certain events and then they will put that sorts of ideas into it. And according to Suzanne, who is the niece of Edith Stein, she felt that some of the interpretation is a little bit too far-fetched, which is why she took over this edition and decided to edit her own. So there's a lot of footnotes in here that is written by her. And even at the very beginning of this talk, when I say that Saint Therese put the slip of paper from Matthew chapter 10, verse 23, it's actually from this book, but the footnote says that no one ever found that piece of letter, neither do they found the letters to Colon Carmel. So it is a commentary by her niece, Suzanne. And if you have a bit more time, this is a little bit on the thicker side. This is her own autobiography that is unfinished. It is from 1891 to 1916. Over here, most part of it is written by her, but at the end, after 1916, it's written by someone else, most likely by Josephine Coepel, one of the Carmelite sisters, but that one is already considered more like a commentary rather than her own works already.
Is this the only autobiography by her, the blue one?
Yes. In fact, it is really sad because it is unfinished. Just now when I show off you the slides regarding about her fleeing to Holland, they smuggled this, they tried to smuggle this book in to finish the work there, but at the end she didn't manage to finish it before she died. So which is why it only, so the timeline is only until 1916. The rest of the other life is actually compilation by her sisters to fill up the gaps. So for women, you can read this. Edith Stein Woman. Even men can read this too, because inside there's also regarding about vocations of men as well as women. So she makes a very good commentary on that. This is already her Christian period when she wrote that. So
well, I just uploaded in the chat room for the ones that want to download the Hidden Life in PDF.
Okay, good,
So
good.
Is there before we close?
Thank you.
Download it from there.
Yeah. Other than that, the rest of the books are philosophical books. If you believe that you're a little bit more on the intellectual side, you can read them, like The Signs of the Cross, which is a very popular book from her. And the rest like The Problems of Empathy and all this sorts of stuff. Even this Knowledge and Faith is also a philosophical writing from her. So yeah, those are the books that you can look into. In generally, ICS produced the series of it. So if you can get either one of it is good, and just to kickstart with it. But my recommendation for a good start, it will be The Hidden Life.
Thank you, Brother George. Thank you.
Okay. So any other questions?
Brother Josh.
Yes.
I just thank you so much for sharing Edith Stein to us. Actually, I was wondering what is the most powerful, message or witnessing, like in a more simplified way for our common Christian followers. There must be some few most powerful, striking, like, and easy for common Christians to follow. If you
the most common one, if you okay,
yeah,
continue on. Okay, for the most common one, it will be her tag phrase, search
most
for truth.
What is the most powerful and most most important that she witnessed to us, in her life? Yeah,
in her life. So her most important tagline is seek the truth, the ultimate truth, nothing but the truth. Even in the time when she's in Carmel, she continues on to seek that. Which is why in Carmel, especially in Holland, with the permission of one of the Father Provincial or Father General, she begins to write philosophical works again. That's because her deep love for truth is so intense. She continued to search for it in different manners, to hunt for it. And that's precisely is the vocation of all Christians, I believe. For example, things that we read online regarding about the church, regarding about about the doctrines, about some of the sayings. As good Christians, we need to really seek the ultimate truth behind all these messages. Like, are they really true, or are they beneficial to the people whom I'm going to witness with? And all these things, it's supposed to be our own vocation too as well. And she herself embodies it. So besides of truth, as you know, not only truth, but she also embodied herself as a person in totality. Her Jewishness, because she's a Jew, she witnessed her faith in all her Jewishness. And as a Carmelite, she witnessed her faith as a Carmelite, even to her friends outside of the community, whom have no understanding or whatsoever about Carmelite spirituality. In some of her letters, she even explained it to her friends, like what is a Carmelite and how do they live the life and what they are there for. Other than that, since you are a woman, witness to the world as a woman, as a true woman, according to the eyes of her. Not the woman ideology that we subscribe to nowadays, but a true woman in the sense that how God envisioned it's supposed to be.
I think, Father, the way you say about seek the truth, based on the way she lived her life, I think she also been true to herself, to her origin as a Jew, true to her for her own conversion, even in spite of persecution, she chose Catholicism. I think she was true to herself as well in the process of discovering the truth.
This is really, really true, because her conversion is not made in such an easy way. Perhaps just now I just go through it very, very quickly. But in fact, it is a great struggle to her to convert into Catholicism, precisely because her close circles of friends who are converts from Judaism, they all were converted Lutherans. So, which is why she came into a very huge argument with her future godmother, Hedwig herself, because Hedwig just couldn't understand why a woman who has no dealings with Catholicism decided to be a Catholic. And they fight again about it, but yet it remains a secret to her godmother. But her godmother accepts it at the end. But in the letter to Roman Ingadent, we know that in one of the letter passages, she said that she converted because of Saint Teresa. And she kept herself very truthful on that. She didn't convert into Christianity out of peer pressure. She converted because she believes that truth lies in there, in Catholicism, and that's why she was converted.
Brother George, can I say something?
Sure.
I'm Brenda here. I think she's a very good example for the present Catholics in the country where we are facing persecution. We do not run away. She was actually given permission or even an escape, to away but she remained to die with the people, her own people. And I say she's a feminist because I think that's how the Catholic Women League came into being, following her feminine approach, in the sense that she did what you call set up the Catholic woman movement. Actually she's very involved, and she inspired me to have the courage, you know, to really to confront persecution in the country, you know, in case, because we are in the Muslim country here, we are facing a lot of hidden persecution and things like that. So I think she actually deserved to be conferred a doctorate. In the sense that, yes, a doctor's judge, because she's so colorful, you know, she's so many educator. She was a nurse. She started with the 80s. Her life is so interesting. When I came to expose to read her book, I was so touched, you know. I mean, I was so moved, you know. It put me in tears. And she was converted because she read the life of Saint Teresa. The whole night she didn't sleep. She read her book, and then she was converted, in a sense, interiorly, and also she found the truth, the Lord, the living God, how Saint Teresa befriend Jesus as a friend, and she found it herself. And I think she's a very good exemplar for we Carmelite to really face the situation. We have exemplar with us, you know. Edith Stein. It will come a day when we will face persecution like that. So we have to brave up. She will be our inspirator.
Yeah, certainly. Very good.
Brother.
Yes.
More question.
No problem.
What raised her to send her blessed? She's a saint or blessed now? Saint.
She's a saint right now.
Yes, she's a saint. What raised her actually? Brought her to sainthood. Actually, what is the cure? Actually,
I didn't look very carefully into that. But definitely there was a cure. I think in the canonization process, perhaps it is written. Perhaps I'm not too sure if Carmelo has any documents regarding about that. But I believe that it is over the place regarding about what sort of cure that she, or what sort of miracles that she has granted for her canonization. Yeah. But so far, so sorry to say, I have no idea what it is. But
okay, thank you.
So, any other thing else?
Sleepy.
Sleepy. Tough subject today.
No.
Tomorrow is a holiday anyway, so yeah.
Thank you, Brother George. Very good talk. Thank you.
Yeah. Hopefully you'll remember something.
Definitely. Thank you.
Okay.
Brother George.
Yes.
Very details.
Yes, Agnes.
I think we had a very good talk, brother.
Thank you.
It was nice to see also a lot of people unexpectedly. It was quite a good, I think, word of mouth. And despite the talk went ahead for quite some time, I think it was good, and all the attention was always high. So we really thank you for the occasion, and we hope that we can exploit your knowledge even more in the future. And until we can meet again in person when God wants.
Okay. Good.
Shall we close?
Yes.
Thank you very much. So I recorded this, so it will remain available eventually to rewatch, and we will find the best way to share among the people that are interested to rewatch it. So at least it's saved on my hard disk.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Father, and thank you, Carmelo, for the wonderful talk.
Okay.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.